Hi everyone, I'm here to get started with our painting session together today. Please hop on, say hello, let me know if you are experiencing any technical difficulties because I really cannot tell. I do have my friend on another device that is going to be relaying any information to because I will be paying very little attention to the screen, honestly. We will do what we can to kind of get this going, and I hope you have some fun with it. But definitely let me know you're here. Say hello. I'm happy that you're joining me. So we have our canvas ready to go. Camera here a little bit. I'm using a standard 11 by 14 canvas because that is my favorite size. I feel like it's nice and big to where I can get my art nice and clear, but it's not so big that the project becomes cumbersome. I am going to start off by laying down the basic foundation of the painting, which is our background, which is going to be a little bit tricky on this one. We are going to be creating a background while we are um, creating the dimension of the tree pretty close together. So we're going to start with a generous amount of black because most of our background is black. Honestly speaking, though, you could probably use any color that makes you happy and make this project work for you. So don't be afraid to feel adventurous about what your project is going to look like today. In the end, you're the one that needs to be happy with it, not me. So I'm actually taking the largest brush that I have because it's a lot of paint that's going to go on there. You can use a big brush, you can use a smaller brush, use whatever is going to make you happy. Either way, it should be fairly effective in creating a mostly black canvas. Um, I'm wetting it just enough to moisten the bristles because I don't really want the paint to get watered down. I'm using, like I said, a pretty generous amount of black. Black goes a long way. It is very pigmented. It has a lot of depth. So you don't need a whole lot to to kind of get the point across. But when it's your background, you want to make sure that you have plenty of it because you don't want specks on your background. We're just going to create a solid black for now, and then we'll start adding dimension with our brush strokes as we add the shape of the tree. I think painting a black background is like my least favorite thing about painting because it can never be black enough as far as I'm concerned. I always want it to be a little bit more flawless. You know, perfection isn't really the aim. My friend Michelle, who is a wonderful painter and is the first painting teacher I ever had, the only painting teacher I've ever had, taught me this trick about painting all the way around your canvas on the edges. This makes it so that you can display your canvas without framing it, and it looks really nice. So finishing your edges is something that I always do and highly recommend for anybody that's planning to display their beautiful artwork without framing. Framing can be really expensive, even with those 60% off coupons that Michael sends you like every day. Still pretty expensive. Um, so to date, none of my personally owned artworks actually have a frame. I don't own all of my artworks. I've given quite a few of them away. So maybe somebody else framed them, but I've never seen it with anything that I've ever made. Our edges. Generally speaking, we always kind of want to make sure that our paint is nice and dry before we add our next layer, which are pictures, any other little details that we want to add there. But with this one, we're going to try and make sure that the paint is still a little wet to start getting in the shape of the tree, because we kind of want it to blend into the background. And honestly, I'm just kind of guessing on this technique because I've never actually done it. Like with a lot of my artwork, I am kind of winging it because I don't practice before I start a new project. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to turn out. I do know that it's not going to be 100% like like the photo that I've displayed on Facebook. That's just more our inspiration, and we will end up with something that is very much our own. It might resemble the original a little bit, but it won't be 100%. While we're finishing this up, I'm going to take an opportunity to say hello, and I hope you're feeling better, to my friend Heather, who had surgery today. This painting is very much dedicated to you, sweetie, and we hope, I'm sure all of us hope, that you will recover and be back to rescuing all of those animals that you love so dearly. My friend Heather has two beautiful dogs that love her to pieces and that she loves to just as many pieces. And she does a wonderful job fostering and rescuing cats and dogs, whatever state she might be living in at any given point in time. But she had some pretty major surgery today. We're hoping that she is doing well and that she will be back to cuddling orphaned animals in no time. I'm going to get our edges down here, and then we're just going to let that go. That was another trick that Michelle taught me is, especially when you have a background that's mostly the same or it doesn't really matter, flip it over and get your edges done. And then if you don't like how one end of your painting started out, you can decide which background you want to display. It could be the top, it could be the bottom, it doesn't really matter. Hoping that I got the whole thing, I can't actually tell. So while this is drying a little bit, I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm going to leave it exactly the way that it is for now. And I'm going to get some white. White has a lot of different purposes. Most of the time I use it for blending. But in this case, we're actually going to use it to define the shape of our tree, which is kind of different. Usually you would use a color that is, the color of your tree. Really what you want is a high contrast against that darkness. And white is about as opposite as you can get. It will be super easy to show what you're doing. Oh, hi Allison. Hi Sarah. Hi Alicia. I'm glad you're joining us. I hope you have some fun. If not, I hope you have some fun watching me do this weird thing that I'm not really sure I'm doing well. But I love you all. Um, so I have my door shut right now. This is my art room, and my cats are mad at me because they were not allowed to be in here because they couldn't behave themselves, and they are doing that, that little claw thing underneath the door like this, so that I will let them in. I may break down. It's pretty stinking cute. Hi Laura. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that white. And you see, I haven't actually cleaned my brush. It's because I don't necessarily want only white tones. I want some of those gray tones as well that you get when you mix black and white. And I'm just going to swipe upward and kind of get the shape of that tree. I'm going to do some more over here. And this is just, I'm defining the space for that tree. And then there's a little bit of a hollow in the middle, where a flower or whatever it is that you've decided you want in there is going to go. And so the black paint isn't exactly dry yet, so it's actually going to, hi Janet, we're going to go ahead and use the wetness of that to let the paints blend and become, let them play together so that they become more of like the picture that we're looking for. And I'm just going to take just a little bit more, and I'm going to show you my palette here. I'm taking it and I'm kind of like squashing it down because I don't want gobs of paint for what I'm about to do. And I'm just going to kind of like shift it diagonally a little bit, and I'm just going to start dragging with a bit of a squiggle to kind of get that bark going. Trees kind of do their own thing. So your lines don't have to be straight. They don't have to be diagonal. They can be smaller. They can be bigger. You can go back later and you can add definite details like knot holes in the bark grain. I'm just kind of playing with it because I don't actually know what I'm doing. Hi, Maria. And then I'm going to take a different size brush. Again, just wetting the bristles enough to make them bendy. And I'm going to do the same thing, same technique, a little bit of black, a little bit of white, but the smaller brush strokes are actually going to add more dimension. And you can wait for the canvas to be a little bit drier to do this because then that's really going to make things pop. But it's up to what you want to do. And you can do as much of this or as little as you want. You really kind of need to let the rest of your canvas dry. So why not just spend that time loving on your tree? And yes, I know that sounded weird. I don't care. I live in Oregon. People like trees. Make sure you paint off to the side as well. Actually, Chris pointed out to me on one of the paintings that I did on my flowers on black that it actually gave them kind of like a 3D effect because they go off towards the wall. So that can be kind of neat too, and it's very eye-catching. Um, that the painting doesn't just stop at the end of the canvas. My paint is really wet right here, so it's not actually playing with the white very well. So I'm going to leave that alone for a little while and do some stuff over here. Hi, Malia. Glad you could join us. So honestly speaking, I'm only kind of looking at the screen every now and then, but my best friend Daryl is here watching the live stream, and he is letting me know when I need to pay attention. So feel free to say hi or ask questions or anything. I am here for you. So when you have the opportunity to use your brush and it's feeling like it's a little bit dry, that's a good opportunity for you to just kind of drag it onto those more stubborn black ends because it's got a very minimal amount of paint on it left, and it's just going to allow for you to paint without painting, get some coverage without actually adding any paint. So that gives you those kind of like in between tones of gray and darker gray. Lets you kind of feel like you've shaded the whole thing in. I'm kind of happy how my tree is turning out for now, so I'm going to leave it alone. One of the things that I recommend highly to a lot of people who are painting, especially if you're doing this for the first time, is don't think on it too much. Don't overwork it, because then you'll end up doing too much. Sometimes less is more, and sometimes you kind of just need a minute to um, have a look at it from afar and leave it alone and let it grow on you. Your artwork is going to be beautiful no matter what. So I'm going to leave that tree alone. And I'm going to start working on the grass. The easiest way to make green is mixing some blue into a lot of yellow. My mother isn't even on here. Okay. So yeah, take yourself a really, really nice and generous pile of yellow, and add blue to it little by little until you get the tone that you want. If you are not comfortable with this, and not everybody is, you can just use a straight up green, and tone it up and down by adding yellow or blue. It's going to give you lots of different tones and hues. I'm going to use just a little bit because sometimes it's happy. I'm not doing this weekly yet. I mean, I guess I could. I've never been asked to. but we could certainly make it a thing. It's not like we don't. It's not like we have a lot of stuff to do right now in the evening, so we could totally make it a weekly thing if that's what you would like to do. Um, Again, I would like to re-extend the invitation that if you need supplies and you are in the Portland area, um, I can make a bundle of supplies for you so that you can come and pick up, or we can meet somewhere and get it for you. Um, I can provide a table easel, which is what I'm using. You can set this on your table or a work desk or a bench or wherever it is that you happen to decide that you want to do your art. Otherwise, you can order them online. They are not expensive. I've purchased them for as little as $13, maybe. Um, and you're going to want to use very standard acrylic paint. This is what I use. I find that it is pretty standard, pretty cheap to find anywhere in small or large quantities. The beginner set from Artist Loft, which you can find at Michael's, is actually pretty decent. The only thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting a primary red rather than the basic stuff that they give you, because it is more, oh, excuse me, orange than actual red. It doesn't make purple, it makes brown. But you can do all kinds of different stuff with it. So we can chat, Maria, and see what you would want to do. If you guys have a picture that you think that you would like to paint, I would be really, really happy to look at it, break it down, and we can try and do it together. I'm really, really excited that you'd like to do this more with me. Okay, so we are going to keep going here. I'm going to take, this is a pretty standard filbert brush. It's one of my favorite brushes. It's pretty big. It's really, really good for mixing colors. You can use any brush really to mix a color, but when you use a smaller brush to mix your colors, it just makes your brush fat. And it makes it difficult for you to use for detailing. So you can use whatever you want, but I prefer big brushes when I'm mixing colors. Put these over here. One of the things that I can't express how important it is to have around is a paper towel. I have this out because I used it earlier in my meal and, well, barely used it. I usually use shop towels. Shop towels are amazing for painting. You can cut it in half and use it for one painting, and it will last you the whole project. And they're relatively cheap too. So I've got a pretty generous amount of yellow here, and I'm just going to touch the blue to it, just touch, and I am going to start working it into that yellow. Blue is very, very pigmented, and it doesn't take a lot for you to start getting that really pretty green worked in. So be very, very slow to add that blue, because once you add too much blue, it takes a lot of yellow to tone it down. And you can have separate piles, where you're using a lot more blue so that you can get a different shade of green. I actually like that because I think the grass there is actually a combination of greens and yellows. And I always think that kind of looks pretty. It kind of adds highlights, to it. Another thing that I really like to do is I don't really like to blend my colors until they're smooth. I like them to be chunky with splotches of other colors, because that will actually translate onto your painting. You won't have a straight line of green. You'll have a line where there's some green and some yellow and some other pretty colors happening, because they're marrying together. They haven't actually become one new color yet. They're still their own individual colors, and they're working together to create a pretty picture. So to do your blades of grass and your leaves and everything, really all you have to do is just start from the bottom and start moving upward. Lighten your touch as you go up, and that's going to give you your finer edges to the top. You know, and there are some leaves back there that I'm just gonna kind of, I'm gonna let that dry. Actually, it's still pretty wet. See how it's still kind of shiny right here? That means that the paint hasn't dried yet. If I put my brush on that right now, it's just gonna all turn black, and we don't want that to happen. Um, Hi Pam. Hi Mom. I hadn't scrolled, so I didn't see that before. Daryl was telling me your mom is saying hi to you, but I was thinking he was maybe a little bit crazy, and it turns out that I just wasn't paying attention. Um, we can do like a little bit too much color for me just yet. And you can put as much or as little grass as you want. You can use a finer tip brush, and kind of go back there and get more of it in, smaller blades. I think this brush is a little bit rough, so I may swap it for something a little softer. Let's give it another chance. See, because my canvas is still kind of wet, it's actually pulling in the black into my colors, and it's giving them kind of a little bit of a brown tone, which is actually kind of neat because you get a lot of different colors in nature. And it's kind of neat to see how sometimes you're not really aiming for something, but you're going to end up with something that actually looks really neat on your canvas. um, and then you can make some grass going in the opposite direction, because grass will grow anywhere and it will do whatever it wants, especially if it knows that you just mowed your lawn the night before, and you weren't really looking forward to doing that chore again. And you can be as clear with what you want, or you can be a little bit more abstract and let people kind of guess what that might be. Doesn't matter. But you want is for it to look better for you, and then, oh, stop crying, Daryl. Everything's fine, babe. Did anybody else get any big hailstorms today here in Oregon? We got one today. It was what, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Giant chunks of rock falling from the sky. So I'm going to leave this be here for a little bit because I want to get those flowers in. And those flowers are kind of not my thing. They're kind of plain, and I don't really do plain. Um, but I am a really, really big fan of daisies and black-eyed Susans. They are my favorite flower. So I think I'm going to just incorporate those into my painting a little bit today. I'm going to take just the tiniest bit of red. Again, red is a really, really pigmented color, so a little bit is going to take you a long way. And I've got some yellow here that I separated from my original batch. I'm just going to incorporate just a little bit of red to that. See, I've overdone it. I'm going to need to add a little bit more yellow to it. But I just want to change. I don't want to take down the brightness of the yellow. I just want to change it a little bit. I want it to be a little bit more orangey so that it looks a little bit more golden. Because I think, yeah, we had a bunch of hail this afternoon, and funny story, I thought I heard some thunder with it. And I was like, ooh, thunder, because I love listening to thunder. We don't get that much of it here in Oregon. It turns out that it wasn't thunder. It was my next door neighbor dragging his trash can into the garage, screaming because he got caught outside when the rocks started falling from the sky. I laughed. I felt bad about it, but I did laugh. Love you too, Mavi. Good to see you. Kinda. So I'm going to take this kind of golden yellow that I've made, and I'm just going to start drawing my flower. And black-eyed Susans don't pop open kind of like they do in the picture, but you can draw whatever flower makes you happy. Black-eyed Susans kind of droop a little bit. So I'm going to kind of go like that. I'm going to go back and make sure that those are nice and opaque. And I'm sorry, I didn't explain myself. I actually changed to a rounded tip brush. It's kind of small. You can use a regular round brush or any other brush that you're comfortable with, but this is my handy go-to when I'm doing petals. I'm going to do another one down here. Hi, Ceci. How are you doing? I'm glad to see you. So my best friend Daryl and I, we've been friends for like, I think we've calculated it. It's something like 18 years. And we used to write stories together, still kind of do. And one of the characters in our stories is named Cecilia, who I actually named after you. She's very adventurous, and she has a big mouth. I thought he'd like to know where that name came from. Love you, Ceci. And then I'm going to use some of these leaves that I have here to kind of make like a bud. To talk to me, well, you can't do it on the live broadcast. Once I figure out Zoom, you'll be able to talk to me and interact. But you can type in the chat screen, and Daryl is actually letting me know what's going on so that I can answer your questions. Otherwise, um, you can call me later and I can answer any questions that you have. I'm glad that you joined us, though, Mom. Go like that. And because I really like these flowers, I'm going to put another one in here because I can. And don't be afraid to try things. There really isn't very much that you can do with your painting that you can't undo with a bunch of paint. You can literally paint over your painting and do it over again if you don't like it, if it doesn't grow on you. If your paint is wet enough, you can take a damp towel and you can try and wipe it off. Otherwise, you can let it dry and you can just paint right over it with black or white or whatever color it is that you want to do. Think of it as covering up a tattoo that was a really bad idea. It's not, nothing is forever, at least not anymore. You can totally use a second color of flower if you want to. All of your flowers don't have to be the same color. You can have white colors. Um, you can do sweet peas that come in a variety of color. Um, my favorite are black-eyed Susans. They generally all grow the same color out of the same bush, which is why I'm sticking to the same one. Um, but you can definitely um, leave your painting to your imagination and aesthetic. You know, um, make it speak for you. I'm just gonna leave it like that because I like it. Now, the the black-eyed Susan has kind of like a little uh, pyramid sort of center that uses. It calls for some brown. Brown is actually very easy to make unless you're my friend Marty. She absolutely detests making brown for any of our projects, and it is my favorite part of our projects together because it makes me laugh so much. All you have to do to make some brown is take some blue, some yellow, and add red until you get the brown that you like. If it looks kind of like poop, uh, you need to add more red or yellow. Just play with it until you get the color you want. See, this is absolutely too red. So I have a brown that I'm relatively happy with, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. And you just kind of touch, touch, touch. Like you don't really want to like stroke it on. You just kind of want to touch until you get the right shape. You know, you just touch. And you want it to go into the flower base a little. And I'm using the brown mostly just because I should. But then Once that dries, I'm going to go back with some black and some white, and I'm going to give it a little bit more dimension, which is going to make it look dewy, which is also kind of a fun thing to do. And now while I'm letting those dry, I am going to go back to actually adding more grass, because the grass that I put down before has dried by now. And I can go in there and put more in with a different brush, with a smaller brush, which is going to give us a little bit more dimension. And for the purpose of that, I don't want to add more brown to my painting. So I have actually cleaned off and rinsed and cleaned off my brush. It's still nice and wet. Chris is not painting. He is upstairs yelling at someone. I'm assuming it's his father, because he's on the phone. So um, he has left me to my devices. Yeah. I'm going to go in with the green and the yellow. And I'm gonna take that. See this here, right here, this part right here on your easel keeps your painting steady. I'm actually going to take my painting and hang it on there so that I can get to the bottom of my canvas. Because see how I have all of this empty space down here. I want that to go all the way underneath. So I'm gonna actually start under the canvas and drag upward. I did do my hair today. I did kind of curl it out a little bit, but if I let my hair frizz out, I would kind of look like Bob Ross, and it is not a good look for me. I can't pull it off. Thanks, Mom. So I've kind of gone with a little bit more yellow than green because I want these stems to stand out a little bit. But I want this new grass I want there to be a very clear contrast from the old and the new. Um, so I'm still using green, but I'm actually dragging my brush through the yellow first, before I get on it. Hi, Betsy. Nice to see you. Kinda. Give your kiddos a big kiss for me. I'm getting a big kick of seeing all of their pictures. I think that's been the biggest difficulty for me during this whole um, closure is I miss seeing the students every day, especially the ones that have a special thing with me every day. I have one student that comes to me every day so that I can make sure her nose is clean every day. She shows me, she goes like this to show me that she doesn't have any actual boogers on her face. I have one student that comes and tells me that I should have missed him because he wasn't there the day before school started. So he'll come and be like, I'm here today. You better have missed me. Well, I certainly do. So this grass is now starting to dominate the bottom of the painting, which is exactly what we're aiming for. And now we can go back, now that our canvas up here is like, see, 100% dry, we can go back and we can get those details that that I was afraid to put in earlier because the canvas was still a little bit wet. Finish up with my grass here first. And then I'm going to take just some straight yellow and I'm going to go over some of these stems that I already have just to make them pop out a little bit. Kind of playing with the idea of the light hitting them. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go back to that big old brush, that big dirty brush that I was using earlier today, or a little while ago anyway. And I ran out of green in the process of getting that grass in, so I'm just going to mix a little bit more here quickly. Again, I want real chunky and shaded color, so I don't necessarily want it all to meld together. And then I'm really smooshing, against the palette. I want to get as much paint out of the brush as I can before I bring it to the canvas, because I want a really, really light touch with these background leaves. I want them to be more of an afterthought than an actual, well, that didn't work out, did it? Than an actual part of the picture. If it works out, great. Otherwise, it wasn't meant to be. It still looks kind of nice, though. I'm going to go back and again give them a little bit of contrast. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish the detail on my flowers. And we are almost done with our masterpiece for today. I can go ahead and set that back down on the easel rest. Another thing that you can go now that it's nice and dry, you can definitely go back in there with some of your white paint and you can put some more detail into your tree. Give it any kind of life that you want. You can make it a special tree. You can carve some initials in there. I've been thinking that this kind of painting would be kind of neat if we had done like some little mushrooms down here, like some toadstools or something. But I wasn't brave enough to try that today. Maybe next time. So I'm going to take just some white. And I'll turn this towards you here a little bit. I'm going to take some white, and you can barely see the brown on that black-eyed Susan. So I'm just going to take a little bit of paint. I'm actually going to smush the brush down because I don't want a smooth. I'm not going to carve my initials like Bob Ross, but I am going to sign my painting. So if you can see, let's see here. If you can see the tip of that brush, it is not smooth. It is kind of chunked off. That's exactly what I want. I want it to be a little bit on the rough side because I want to sparse that white. I don't want it to necessarily block off all of that brown. I want it to complement it. I want it to bring it out. So it's just a little like a peppering of white rather than a paint over. And then we're going to do just a little bit of black to do the exact same thing. And this just kind of gives it the look of the actual flower seed, which is what you would be able to see if you looked at a black-eyed Susan. It looks a little bit textured, and it looks a little bit like seeds getting ready to fall out, just like that. And then I'm going to take the last brush for today. It's a very fine brush. This is a micro. It looks like it has like 3 bristles on it. It is very, very fine. I'm going to take that and I'm going to take some of that brown that I made for that, for those flowers. And I'm going to pick a side of the petal and I'm just going to gently sweep and define the edge. You don't necessarily want to do it on both sides because then it's just going to look like, like you painted it with crayon, and that's not the look we're going for today. It doesn't even have to be like right on the edge. It can actually come into the painting because that's going to make it look kind of like the little creases that you see on petals. You're just using it to give your flower some dimension and some life. And then I'm going to just take this tiniest little bit and I'm going to drag it up the petals a little. See, there's barely any paint left on the brush that's letting me do this, but it's also letting me give shape, the right shape to the petal. It's allowing the painting to have movement, which is also very important. And just like that, we have completing a painting. You can use whatever tool that you would like to sign your masterpiece. I usually have a paint pen around, and I have totally forgotten to bring one with me. So I am going to brave trying to paint my name on this thing. Uh, should be okay. Let's see here. So I'm just going to put my name. I took a very stiff brush and it seems to be working out just fine for me. And I like to date my paintings. Chris is keeping track of all of my paintings for the day I become a millionaire. Once all this madness is done, this painting is going to get boxed up and sent off to wherever it is that Heather Bullock Myrick is going to be living at that time. And this painting, as I stated earlier, is dedicated to her. Everybody keep Heather in your prayers. She had major surgery today. We want for her to be well and for her to be happy. And we're hoping that she'll be able to join us the next time that we are painting together. But we are done with our masterpiece. I will post a picture of it on my Facebook page and on Make Your Mark. I hope that if you painted or you colored or you joined or you did something on your own, that you will post it also so that we can see what we did in our kind of together time today. I love all of you so very much. Thank you for making this a huge success for my evening. It was definitely the highlight. God bless you all and have a wonderful evening. Stay safe and stay sane. Good night.